Hi, Megan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining me this morning. I'm really excited to share in these mamas interviews about what's going on in our world. I feel like we just need so much more connection and peace for our hearts, for our beings, for our emotional bodies, for our physical bodies. And as we all know, that we're in this pandemic of something that we've not ever gone through before. And I feel like the Magnificent Mamas could use just layers of support. And I wanted to bring together interviews with other mamas who are thriving, who have the tools in their toolbox. And I know you have some tools in your toolbox that you could share with us, and how we can get from this very small space of living in quarantine and expand our thoughts, our being, our spirit, to believe that there's a reason and maybe that there's a bigger cause, and maybe we're learning something from that. But before we get into that, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. And I need to sit on my hands because I talk with my hands. I'm such a New Yorker. Um, and that's not good for screen. So please introduce yourself, share with us who you are, what your background is, and what you do, and then we'll get into our interview.
Okay, sure. My name is Megan Anderson. By profession, I am a physical therapist. I also have a background in yoga and mindfulness and have just been a self-studier for at least the last decade, trying to understand some of my own anxiety and depression, trying to cope with transition and in many ways moving as the wife of a military pilot, and also a couple that has gone through infertility. So just moving through those challenging life transitions, and learning how to do that with less of the roller coaster.
So you're well versed in anxiety and how to self control, um, reflect, self reflection, and also having some grace and tenderness for where you are, because I come from the firm belief that it's okay to have a temper tantrum. It's okay to feel sorry for yourself, but it's a matter of how long that's going to take over your body and take over your actions and behaviors. So, as you know, and I know, because we could talk for hours on infertility and not having control, something that is so frustrating as women, that there are some things that we can't change, but it's how we handle it, how do we react to it,
Yeah.
and how do we bring peace to our being around that. So thank you for sharing that, and I appreciate who you are, and what you have is your skill and also just your wisdom and your knowledge. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to bring you to the mamas, because I know that you have a lot of skills and a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom that you're going to share with us. So during this time of this uncertainty, this quarantine, what are some things that you feel like you've learned? I feel like we're already in it 3 weeks, right?
I feel like I've been in it for a year. Um, it does. It feels like 3 weeks ago was just so far, so long ago. I think what I have invited in is just being with whatever comes up. So in mindfulness, we really learn to not change anything. We're just meeting the experience, and I've been able to put that into practice in a really big way, of being tender with myself, of being gentle with myself, and letting myself feel. I've been posting all over social media about just feeling your feelings, because when I try to just stay positive, I feel like I'm shutting off this other half of myself that just needs to feel grief for the things that I'm losing, for the freedoms that I'm losing. And when I can feel that grief and I can feel kind of it, I danced the other night and I just felt this grief just flowing out of me. And in all of that, it felt like this healing too, that there's this gift of space that I'm inviting in, and I'm not sure what the space is for. I feel like I've been inviting space in well before this started, and but not being so afraid of what I don't have, and of the fear, but just kind of curious about what is to come.
I love that. And I love that you shared the dance because, everybody dances in their own way, but the movement of that body and the music, the twofold of therapy, of
Yeah.
vibration of music, and allowing the vibration and the sound to really penetrate into your cellular being, but also the movement and how many of us don't move, especially in times like this. We just sit. We're sitting a lot. We're doing a lot of Zoom calls, but we're sitting and we're stagnant, and that is not the way our bodies are designed. So the movement and allowing that space that you said is so amazing. So that's a really good tip for movement, right? For this feeling of stuckness.
Yeah.
So with this, what do you feel like? Are you starting to see, and maybe you're not, I don't want to put words in your mind or your thoughts, but are you seeing opportunity starting to rise up or grow or germinate because of this pause, for this world pause?
I do. I think I'm hesitant to kind of make big bold claims right now because I feel that there's so much processing, and we're all in our own process with what's coming up. But I do feel I feel a lot of feminine energy, and I feel a lot of nurturing and caring and compassion, and this idea of just doing things differently has been with me, and I'm not sure what it means. Like I'm not sure exactly how it's going to play out or how the world will change and how we'll be different, but I feel hopeful, that some of those things that we have space to kind of figure out right now, because we have to find new creative ways of doing things.
Mm,
I hope some of them stick around and become bigger changes.
yeah. So I feel like and for me, 9/11 was a very pivotal moment in my life. I'm a New Yorker, as I said, and it struck hard into my heart. And from that point, the fears and the inability to think beyond what we were aware of at that point was so hard for people. And not that I'm comparing this to that, but it was still fear and uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're experiencing now. And I saw at that time that, like you said, there was a lot of nurturing, and there's a lot of nurturing going on right now. And for those of us who are choosing to watch the news, it's very, very frightening. But then if you choose to start to look at the nurturing that's going on, the holding space for those who are not able to create words or feelings that to get past this pain point. I love that you brought up the whole femininity, and I believe the same thing. The last several years, I'm noticing that in my private practice, that this rise of feminine, loving, compassionate, nurturing energy is rising. And I feel the pause in this frustration that is allowing this rise to be lifted, because that masculine energy, there's nothing the masculine energy can do to take this away. This is not a war against a person or to kill a being. It's a virus. And in order to really build our immune system, I feel it's right now, it's building that love, holding that space for compassion. And that's going to heal. That's going to heal our immune systems. That's going to lift us. So thank you for bringing up that point. I love that point. So girly, but feminine.
Yeah.
So what are some ways that, I know you noted, you brought up the whole point about dancing.
Mm.
In your professional opinion, or maybe some other ways, what would you give to the magnificent mama suggestions of how to get from this frustration, how to get out of this dark space?
Yeah, this is an area that I still have to keep reminding myself to come back to because I get stuck to movement is literally, physically moving, but also energetically moving my energy through. And I go back and forth between doing like a really restorative yoga practice that's just wildly nurturing. And I love that we have the opportunity to study with teachers all over the country right now. Zoom is certainly different for a yoga class than being in person, but there's some lovely benefits to hearing different comforting voices too. But I also need to break out of the rigidity of certain movements. Like I really haven't been called to do a real structured yoga flow. Like I love dancing. I love putting on music that just sings to my soul and moving like a maniac. My whole backside of my house is windows, so I don't know if my neighbors are watching, but I'm sure I look like a lunatic.
Or
But
at least you're making them laugh, if right? And
my little
laughter is also good.
um and I like there's a thing called Five Rhythms, which is really rooted in moving through emotions with sound and music. It's a guided movement meditation. I love doing that, but that's not always practical either. It's usually an hour and a half class, and it's once or twice a week, virtually right now. So just putting on my favorite music and shaking and moving and stomping my feet and just literally moving that stuck energy out of my body has been like my biggest grounding in medicine.
That's so cool. Yeah, you reminded me, stomping your feet. It's something that maybe a child would do, but really what it is, as I teach the chakras, it helps to balance and open that foot chakra, which grounds us into Mother Earth energy.
Yeah.
So that temper tantrum of stomp is really beneficial for the body too. So really brilliant. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us, or anything that you think that we can benefit from what's going on in today's world? Not to put you on the spot, but just some words of wisdom, some encouragement.
I think the messages that keep coming up for me is to just let the feelings flow. It very much feels like a sine wave or a roller coaster where I go through these different ebbs and flows of emotion. And I think I used to be afraid of that. Like early on with my anxiety, I used to be really, really afraid of those emotional waves. And I think in the wisdom of learning to trust that these are just, my body needs to feel these things. There's so much coming at us in the world, that I trust that this is a process and that I need to feel what's coming in. I also take times to check out too. I mean, I can't feel 24/7, and I'm not shaming myself, blaming myself, or being hard on myself for getting less done in the day, or to not sitting with my feelings all day long. But I do make time each day to feel, because I think it's so important.
Oh my gosh, so important. And give yourself grace to not be so productive, for those of us who are staying home with their kids. And if you can hear mine in the background, knowing that there's people who are living here and I can't be that productive, as productive as I would like to be. And to give myself grace, it's okay,
I
because
don't even have kids and I'm not getting as much stuff done. Like, it's just like there's just so much going on right now. So
yeah,
grace. I love that word.
it's the movement of the world, and there's a lack of it that we're not feeding into. And that's that interconnectedness that I am noticing. Earlier this morning, I did a meditation class, and several people on the class were saying that they were waking up with nightmares or bad dreams, and or just waking up. And one of the recommendations that I give my clients is to just ask spirit, universe, God, angels, whatever you choose to call upon for comfort, is to remove this fear, remove this frustration, remove this energy, and replace it with love. And maybe you continue to repeat that mantra just to continue to replace that love in your heart, because that's what we need. We're being so surrounded by a lot of fear right now, and we need to just negate that and bring up more love. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for spending time with me this morning. I feel like everything you've said is such a value. I feel like you and I can talk for hours because we share so much in like minds. But how can we get in touch with you if somebody wanted to reach out? I know there's amazing, magnificent mamas in our group who could definitely benefit from you and your profession and your expertise. So share with us where you are. Where do you hang out?
Yeah, so the biggest place I'm at right now is on Instagram at Mindful Physio. I also am on Facebook at Megan Anderson Physical Therapy, and then my website is meganandersonpt.com. And I did just post a blog last week about sleep, because I noticed for me that was one of the biggest things that started to shift when the world started shifting. So yeah, I'm on there, and I'm also doing discounted rates on virtual health coaching, even for physical pain and things like that, where we can't necessarily access our usual hands-on care right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll have to get on there and read that blog. So I appreciate you, Megan. Thank you. Keep honoring yourself and your anxieties and your frustrations. And I'm sending love and light to you and your husband as he gets ready to go back out and travel. So
yeah, thank you.
Healthy and safe, and you as well.
Thanks, and same to your family.